Some cultures out here don't even believe in mental health and elements of psychology. Many introverts can go through life in the developmental years with very minimal support or appreciation for who they are. You know, and this in itself is what can breed specific dark traits, you know. I always mention brooding. Brooding basically means bearing grudges, holding grudges with malicious intent, malice. This is what happens when people are unable to express themselves. And often this demeanor is just very off-putting, very unattractive. You know, you take small things out of context, or you get wound up over small things. It's like a mix of sensitivity and vengeance, you know? And sometimes, from my experience, these traits stay with people for most of their life, or at least through parts of their life, times in their life that should have been the highlights of their life. When they're younger, when they're more attractive, when they're more outgoing. And so many introverts who are on this darker side, pardon the term, have a very emotionally manipulative way of being. You know, and usually introverts are very cerebral people, i.e. very thoughtful, deep thinkers. So usually this will make people, or these types of people, very aware of how they feel, very intelligent emotionally, you know. And so with those tools, these people can be very almost dangerous when it comes to things such as emotional manipulation, emotional abuse. If such abuse isn't accepted, often what will follow will be brooding or sulking, silent treatments. Now, to be fair, as I say these things, it kind of reminds me of myself in some cases as well, okay? You know, I, like many guys, have also not had the support of understanding what an introvert is, or, you know, certain aspects of psychology, my upbringing, you know, harsh environment, etc., etc. So yeah, I can't be immune, and I can't be, the fact that I am conscious of such things means that I can try to improve the situation, right? I think that's the most important thing. No one is expecting a human being to be perfect, but we have to work on a lot of our flaws. So things such as the silent treatment, you know, old habits die young. Sometimes the instinct is to, someone wrongs me, you know, kind of be silent for a bit, let them understand and know that you've crossed me, but not for long. You know, obviously I'm mature and I prioritize more than anything communication. You know, but I understand when people get wound up to a certain point, you enter this part of you that can be very immobile, rigid, cold. Unfortunately, these are things, or these are traits that are consistent with being emotionally manipulative. You know, through these behaviors, you're trying to affect people, and it's very crucial to firstly be aware of that and understand that it is a bad trait, and also next time do a better job. Things like being passive-aggressive, kind of synonymous with the silent treatment as well, but passive-aggressive, again, you're being indirect with your communications. You know, you're not being upfront about things that might have affected you. You know, that again is dark traits. Dark traits. I'm refraining from using the term dark triad, okay? You know, dark triad traits. You know, speaking about that, some people are trying to be dark. You know, some people are trying to be kind of malicious and being the quote-unquote bad guy. But in reality, in most cases, from my experience, people that exercise and live by these traits are people who usually never get real respect. You might say that fear brings respect, but you're never gonna be respected in a way that holds true throughout the ages. And usually people who are, I'm looking for the right term because I don't want to say nice, but I would say people who are upfront and honest, particularly about how they feel when they are negative. You know, people who are not afraid to just say it as it is and with no holding back. That type of person is going to always be respected. You know, I don't think dark personality traits or characteristics is for the long term, or it's not going to help long term. It's only going to leave you with no authentic people around you. You know, no one who really shares your values. I think recently what happened to that Mexican drug lord? Did he not get ratted out by a close associate? These are the type of things that happen when you engage in that type of way. People want to be the supervillain. I hear this term all the time. And again, usually the people that want to be this type of character are people who probably had bad childhoods, you know, probably had neglectful parents, you know, people who had overwhelmingly negative experiences in their life, people who grew up in rough neighborhoods, you know, people who had to live in a very stressful environment with raised cortisol, on edge, never really comfortable, you know, could be domestic abuse, stuff like that. This is often the root of those desires, to be quote unquote dark, to be a villain. You know, some might say that I'm painting a romantic picture of humanity, but you can look at history. I'm very fond of history. The people who have expressed dark desires in a very unbalanced way, most of them have been looked upon in a very negative light. People who have showcased integrity and a willingness to cooperate and, you know, heroism, these people usually get accolades. You know, and speaking of history, I think a good example, because I've recently been reading about, watching videos on World War II, a good example of this could be the German general called Rommel. If you don't know about him, look him up. Rommel was a very well-decorated general in Germany. By the sounds of him, he was probably an introvert as well. You know, he was very, unlike other German generals of his time, he was much more reasonable when it came to his enemies and his dealings. He conducted himself in the war in an ethical manner, right? Whereas most people or a lot of other fighters weren't, you know? And so because of all these things and other things, obviously his prowess as a general, he's been respected by both the Allies and the Germans. He was seen as the quote unquote good guy of the guys on the team of that German or Austrian guy with the little moustache. Look him up, Rommel. But I guess I'm rambling again. But the point is here, guys, is that, or a point is that sometimes I see a lot of guys complaining, for example, about the dating market and environment, saying that, oh, for example, the women, they have high expectations and they have all these flaws about them, this, that, and the other. Cool, to some degree, I might agree with that. But equally just important, observing that is important, but equally just important is ensuring that we have, you know, the guys making these complaints have the personality traits that are indicative of a person who is attractive. And when I say that, people will instantly go to, oh, looks matter. There are men who are attractive, but still seem to have these type of problems. Men who are tall, but still seem to have these problems. Men who are rich, but still seem to have these problems. Sometimes we need to conduct a review of our personality. You know, we need to showcase great awareness of our character and our nature and how we express ourselves, how we relate to other people. And I think this is especially so for the introvert, who typically comes across as someone who is either lacking communication skills, or is just simply not interested, or is just shy and ineffective. You know, unfortunately, it's usually on the introvert to make it clear to people, to colleagues, sometimes even maybe to family, that they are, you know, a proactive member of the team, that they can pull their weight, that they do indeed care, and that, you know, a noteworthy member of the team, you know, they aren't just self-interested, and they can act as a team, you know, and cooperate and work together. You know, again, these are traits that are in relation to empathy and understanding the greater or the bigger picture that is beyond yourselves, you know? And that's another dark kind of trait, because sometimes introverts can come across as self-centered and only have thoughts and feelings about themselves and how they feel, you know, and quite unwilling to be understanding of how others feel, and sometimes how they, the introvert, make people feel. Very, very important to overcome these dark traits of the introvert. What do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts below. Like is always appreciated. See you in the next one.